I drove for miles and miles down a deserted motorway. It was a strange sight, an empty motorway. Not a moving car in sight. There was plenty of cars left on the curb. I can only assume the drivers ran and left their vehicles, or they remained inside, dead. I did not stop to check. I was trying to get as far away as possible. I knew not whether that earthquake would catch me up. As the night drew up, I stopped the bus on the hard shoulder and got some shut-eye. And indeed, I fell asleep quicker than I ever have. I do not know how much sleep I had missed over the last few days, but there was to be no respite in the dreamlands. I saw myself walking through a white mist onto a vast green field. In front of me I saw hundreds of people enjoying themselves, some kicking a ball, some playing cricket, some enjoying a picnic. When all of a sudden an explosion boomed through the air, I felt the ripples of it, as if it could be felt through time itself. Then I saw a ball of fire high in the sky that flew with tremendous speeds, as if it was directed towards the people in front of me. They were incinerated and roasted. Some turned to dust, and a lonely shadow was imprinted upon the fresh-cut grass. Then I felt the pressure increase, a vacuum being created, and those directly in front of me howled their stomachs as between their fingers came their intestines. One turned around in pain to face me, and all of a sudden one of his eyeballs shot from his head as his face ballooned out of all recognition. All of this occurred as if I were watching a play. I felt their pain and saw their agony, but felt none myself. I was disconnected from the horrors that were played out in front of me. I woke up from the nightmare, a tear running down my cheek. I looked out upon the sun as it rose across the empty motorway. I felt as if sorrow itself would drown me before the light outbroke the day. I felt as if I had been knocked down and got back up again, only to be knocked back down again. I felt as if there was no hope, no need to go on, that I might as well, for that counted, just sit here and wait for rigor mortis to catch me up. I got out of the bus and stood there just watching this beautiful shining globe rising right above me, shining a path all the way down as far as I could view. I felt the electricity of life itself buzz through my body, as if I were being regenerated. For maybe in Mother Nature there is a sign for all to see, that I was not alone as long as the sun kept on rising. I carried on my journey up the motorway, driving as fast as the bus could go. As I sped so fast I could have almost forgot about all that had happened to the world I was now in. I could forget about all those I had lost, as if it were some sunny day in June. I felt the ghosts of my past with me as I sped so fast, as if my old college friends sat in the seats as passengers, as we joked and laughed with each other. But they were just foolish memories that probably no longer had any meaning, for all those days meant nothing now. All those friends long gone, where I do not know. Everything had changed. It seems from the moment the explosion took place, it rocked the very fabric of my life. Everything that I had believed, everything that I dreamed of, everything that I had pursued was all for naught. For in the final analysis, did it contribute to the place I now found myself in? On that lonely track that I drove on, I filled my mind with thoughts and memories to stop myself from feeling alone, all alone. For how I wished at that moment I could reach out and find someone on the end of my outstretched hand, if I could but only see a friendly face once again. And as I thought along those morose lines, I remembered Jenny and how I had lost her. That I felt a sense of guilt that I had a thought of her before my own wife, who was taken away. How could a man so dearly in love disconnect those feelings, which were only left cold because of their untimely departure? How could I love another? How could I betray the love I had once found, that which I wish I could have held all through my years? For if she were with me again, I wouldn't even have taken a glimpse at Jenny. I felt as if this lonely road, this epitome of my now existence, was turning me against myself, turning me mad. But all this was to become a distant memory as I neared the capital. As I did so, I was greeted with a familiar sight. Row upon row of cars, all lined up against each other. Traffic. But they did not move. I instantly put my foot on the brakes and slid nervously up tight to the abandoned cars. I left the bus. It seemed somewhat fitting, as if it was some kind of graveyard for the vehicles we held so dear, these pieces of metal that would no longer serve a purpose. I squeezed through the cars. As I did so, I looked through them to see dead drivers and passengers rotting away. I noticed as I did so the different wealths of the inhabitants of these vehicles, the poor, the middle class, the rich, seated side by side in this elephant's graveyard. When all was said and done, men of different creeds, different wages, all died, one and all. It was a very humbling sight of the futility of man's struggle for modernity, and to stand out amongst his fellow brethren, only to find out in the end, despite the differing ornaments and attachments, each was able to die in the same old way, all made equal again in death. I carried on walking through the trail of abandoned cars to a slip road that led a few miles to the capital. I turned back to see my red bus. I knew this would probably be the last time I would see it, as there was no way to get it past the blockade of cars. It had been a faithful friend to me, ever since I came on this journey, a haven of sorts, which now left me lonely as I journeyed onwards home. I was no further than a few steps down the slip road when I saw to my right a river that flowed beneath the raised motorway. It was jam-packed full of red raw bodies. I walked to the closest end of the motorway to look directly down upon the river that was levelled with dead bodies. I scanned each, and it was difficult to differentiate men from women, their faces bloated and red, their features indistinct. I can only assume, as the radioactive fog swept across the capital, people ran in their droves to find water, burnt and dehydrated. I imagine them running, fighting to get to the water, only to find little hope to their scabs and burnt skin. As I looked closer, I noticed the water had been saturated by the mountains of bodies that now inhabited those seas, their last resting place, body upon body. Many must have drowned as the exodus took place. I tried to count the bodies, but lost count after I reached 200. I turned away from this sight, unable to stomach all the death I was seeing. Again I felt as if in a dream. Why, I felt, was I alive to see all this? How come I did not find myself amongst those bodies? Had I been the luckiest man alive, or should I have hoped for this end? It brought a lump to my throat, such a terrible thought to be made to think. I walked away from the carnage of dead bodies, onwards to the capital, in hope of a happy arrival.